everyone! I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Guardian Troop of Humility. Humility is basically an all-around front tank. He has a fairly low attack, but he is really good at being able to support the rest of your team. He's one of the most consistent magic buffers in the game, mostly because of his legendary trait if you can obtain it, which gives all allies 2 armor and 2 magic whenever he takes damage. Whenever he takes damage, like everything else in this game, is dependent on if he takes HP damage, not armor damage. So things like poison and death on the enemy team, he is really good against. So any kind of damage that he takes on his HP is going to trigger his Virtue of Humility every single time. On top of that, he's also essentially like a Brian the Lucky. He gives all other allies a random stat, and this is boosted by silence as well. Unfortunately, there's not really any silence troop in the game right now that he synergizes well with, mostly because the silent one has no buff on magic, and that's the only troop in the game that can actually silence the entire enemy team. But he has the added benefit compared to Brian the Lucky of being able to also create some gems, just like all the other Guardian, which will allow him to loop this ability and just keep buffing. One other thing to note, we did get our Humility a bit higher than all the other ones. A ultra rare Humility actually has the same exact stats or the same exact stat gain as a mythic Brian the Lucky, which is kind of interesting. So by the time he gets higher up, he'll be much stronger than Brian the Lucky in every single way. Like you can see right here, all other allies gain 17 rank to a random stat. If we go over to Brian the Lucky real quick, you can see that we have a mythic Brian the Lucky, and he too does give all other allies random stat of 16. So it's the same exact thing. At ultra rare, it's the exact same as a Brian the Lucky plus everything else that it does. So we're going to be showing 3 teams with it of a different variety. Most of the teams that you form with the with Humility, you're going to want to have it in a way that you're trying to focus on magic buffs. The main reason that Brian the Lucky used to be used in the past was to get magic buffs on troops that really use magic well. Like you can see in this team, we're going to be using it for Crimson Bat. In this team, we're going to be using it for Web Spinner. And for this team, we're going to be using it for Draculus and Crescendo, but mostly Draculus. So for this, you can see that the enemy team right here has a death. I am going to use the second one. This first team that I have set up, you would use if you did not have Humility's third trait, which I'm pretty sure that quite a few of you do not. But if you do have the third trait, one thing you'll always want to pretty much do is anytime you see a fully traded death, you're going to want to use a Humility against it. That means every single turn, death might be reducing you by 2 life, but you're going to be gaining 2 armor and 2 magic on every single ally. So that's going to be a really big buff for us. And let's just get into it. Also, many teams with the new double red yellow banner, you're going to be able to use pretty well with Humility, since you don't exactly have to put a brown troop, and you'll be able to get your Valkyrie up quicker as well. And if it magic buffs the Valkyrie, you're pretty much going to get max souls in a single cast. So let's get into this. We pretty much just want to leave our Humility, never take like any skulls for the most part, and just leave it to keep taking as much damage as it can, so that we can start racking up just magic and armor on everything else. So like right there, you can see every single turn, Death is going to be buffing us up. And there goes the little stun. Not going to be that big of a deal to us though. We could try going for Web Spinner up. I do want to try leaving the green on the board if we can, so that we can just use Lady or Nerial for it on it instead. So like right here, we'll be able to use Lady or Nerial. Lady or Nerial 2 is getting buffed from all this, so as you can see, she's giving 23 life to everything, which is almost doubling our life, like 50% increase to all of our life right there. So very powerful. Trying to get Web Spinner back up. Already got Lady or Nerial back up now with a 25 buff. And now we have our Web Spinner who can start going if we wanted to. Do keep in mind, if I'm not mistaken, Humility actually has the lowest attack of any Guardian in the game, but he makes up for that in having higher HP and armor, particularly HP. So let's just keep taking stuff here as we need. There seems to be quite a bit of skulls on this board, and I'm actually going to use this on skulls real quick and hope for magic buffs on some of these other ones. As you can see right there, we got a magic buff on Lady or Nerial and on our Valkyrie. Valkyrie, she's already doing 8 over the max souls you can even do per match. Or Lady or Nerial, 49 HP to everything. Unfortunately, we didn't get on our web spinner, but still, that is a huge bonus. Look at this. Look at that amount of HP. And like I said earlier, his humility thing only triggers if it does take HP damage. So the fact that you have something like Lady or an Aerial to go with it will make sure that he'll have the HP required for it to actually trigger. And at this point, you can see we're already at like 200 HP on pretty much everything. And we'll just keep going from here. It just keeps getting huge, so huge. Do need to get our web spinner up if we can, though. I don't want to have to use our blues on our greens, so we're just going to have to convert out these reds, I guess. And that'll give our Lady or an Aerial, who can start looping again. And hopefully we can start getting our web spinner going. There we go. Now, web spinner, as you can see, 25 per cast. And just a few more casts and it'll pretty much die. If we can get it looping, it's just going to keep going forever. So that's just going to take the skulls and we can start doing web spinner again. On 27 damage. Never mind, now 29 damage. Got the extra turn. Not enough mana though, but we can just use Lady or an Aerial for that with a 57 HP buff. Look at those HP values. Let's just keep going. Let's use it one more time, then we'll kill them all.
The aura of the planet is shifting.
Need to stop playing with our food. Look at our HP values. And it just keeps buffing up our magic every turn. Oh, please do not hit web spinner with that. Oh, never mind. There's skulls right there. Okay, so now we're going to do 33 damage to everything. And we'll probably loop that as well. A little bit shorter on mana, but we can just take it with a Valkyrie. And that'll be a match. So yeah, that is essentially what you would use a humility for. It is pretty funny the kind of things that you can do with stat bonuses with it. Especially with other things that buff up. But anything that you use with humility, for the most part, you're going to want to make sure they scale well with magic. So you can utilize both his ability and his legendary ability if you happen to have it. Or legendary trait, I mean. So now we're up against a double death, double famine. I won't show the first team then. I made this other team for newer players. But for the most part, the way I use humility, you kind of need his final trait. In this kind of team, I made... so you wouldn't exactly need a trait since you set him a little bit further back. But since he's using double death this time, let's use our other team with humility up front. I know that most of you probably do not have crescendo because it was an event weapon and I don't think there's ever been a way to obtain it otherwise. If you do not have crescendo, you can use a different banner and just use black manacles instead, which you get at 40 brown and 40 purple mastery. But if you do have crescendo, I would advise going some kind of team like this with your humility. So now we're up against essentially the same team we were just up against, except now that it is double death and double famine. So even the famines, there's a 25% chance that the famine will hit HP. So we're going to be gaining a huge amount of stats every single time they just do a turn. They'll just keep ticking us upwards. So I'll just take this. I want him taking skulls because that will just keep buffing us up.
Mana surge.
Do want to make sure he doesn't get a cast though, if we can. So let's see. We'll take this. Hope for a yellow drop right there. We don't get it, but we're getting huge buffs every single turn. There we go. And now we can start getting him rolling. So before we cast this, I am going to want to wait and use our humility first just so we can get a buff. Normally when I use humility, I like targeting blue just to make sure we can get Valkyrie up. Because if he can get Valkyrie up with his thing and then create a bunch of blues, we'll just be able to follow it up with a Valkyrie cast. In this instance, there are, I believe, more green on the board, so we are going to hit it on a green instead. In hopes that we'll get something off of it, and we do. Get quite a bit of mana. Fortunately, he's getting some greens too, and probably going to mark us soon. So there goes the death mark. He'll probably get the drain soon as well. Luckily, our Draculus cannot be death marked. We're only doing 28 damage on this, but I might just want to get rid of it just in case death mark wants to randomly trigger somehow. And now all we really have to do is get Draculus or our or a crescendo up, and that will be the match. There we go. And there's the Draculus for the kill. At 44 damage to everything. And hopefully now we can show the other one for newer players. Because I know a lot of you, probably a good majority of you will not... Oh, look, he's even using a humility team. How perfect. A lot of you probably do not have a... Which is kind of cool. There are two humility teams that kind of don't need humility's trait to be able to work that well. So this will work pretty well. He's using it more as a yellow spam. He'll be having that Gerald so that he'll be able to get up, be able to loop on the yellows that it creates. Mercy, of course, will be cleansing off all the silence off of the silent one, and the humility will be able to boost based on silence. He does have a 4x ratio on everything that he does that's silenced on the enemy team. One thing to note about that, though, is unlike some of the other Guardians, which have a lower ratio, if I'm not mistaken, he actually has a 1-to-1 ratio on all of his magic. So any magic additional that he has is actually going to be extra stats for everything. So that's going to be pretty nice. That's going to be an additional 4 stats to everything. Luckily, we do have cleanse. We do have something with a silence immunity on this team. So as soon as we get like a Crimson Bat or 2 off, it should be matched. So this will be kind of interesting. We're using we'll be ending it off with 2 humility teams, kind of a different style. One, we're just kind of going for the straight out kill, ignoring the trait, and he's going to use the trait and kind of also utilize the silence bonus that it gets with it. I personally wouldn't advise using humility with the silent one. The main reason for this is the silent one does nothing with its magic. And a lot of the buffing that humility is doing is magic based, so it's not going to be able to gain as much benefit as it could be. But Gerald is definitely a good pick to be using with humility, since it can loop with his yellow. Same as Mercy, since you can fill it and cleanse as needed. Though you do, if humility ever gets poisoned, you want to make sure you don't cleanse poison though, because poison is actually beneficial to humility if you have it traded. Only if you have it traded.
Surge.
So right here, we'll take those yellows and we can just explode all the yellows that he's been creating on the board. He is going to take some though and get his ability up, but we'll still explode them. There we go, and now we can start doing Brian the Lucky and everything else. Of course, Brian the Lucky isn't horrible. One good thing about humility with Brian the Lucky is they don't have any mana conflict, so you'll still be able to use both of them. So right there, we didn't get any magic buff, and we also got attack buff on the last troop, which is completely useless to us, but let's just explode the board, get out those few yellows that are on it. I am unfortunately hitting his humility every single time we do explosions, but he doesn't have anything benefiting too much from magic. I think the only thing that's really benefiting much is Gerald, and as long as he doesn't get mana, that's not going to be a threat at all. So right there, we do get a magic buff. It's on our humility. Hopefully the yellows he creates will be able to steal from him. He used it on green. And we'll be able to take some. We can take it right there. And now we'll be able to get our explosion. Or I might just wait and take yellows off of the Mercy cast instead. So he'll get his humility up as well. But we'll start and fill the last of ours. Okay, we didn't get the mana from there. Trying to see. I'll drop that then. You'll take green for some reason. I'm actually going to use this on skulls right here. Reds, there are more of. I want to use it on skulls to force him to take skulls next turn. There we go. And he takes the skulls right there. And now we'll be able to explode pretty much the entire board right here. 51 explosions. Goodbye, all the yellows. And he'll get his off. He actually got some skulls too. Got a burn off. Double skulls. We've been very unlucky and haven't been able to get a single magic buff onto our bat, which is kind of the premise of this team. So it's somewhat unfortunate that we haven't been able to get it off. And now it's HP. We're never going to get that magic buff, are we? This match. So let's just cleanse off all the burning that he's been doing to us. And he's going to keep casting his as well, which is a bit annoying. He's also about to get his silence off, which definitely isn't good. I think he's going to get it off right here. So now we'll definitely want to make sure we block all of his... Alright, this could be actually a little bad right here. We want to make sure we can block his Gerald from getting any mana. As long as his Gerald doesn't start getting up, he's not going to be too much of a threat. He's just going to keep buffing. This is essentially just going to be a buff war at this point. Of two different humility teams going at each other. Yep, and that's why he's so much better than Brian the Lucky too. Brian the Lucky, he uses his turn ends, unlike humility where his turn will keep going on forever. If he can get a good enough board. Oh, and there he goes with Gerald up with 56 damage. That can be pretty dangerous. Luckily the board isn't set up with too many reds. We keep getting magic buff on our Herdmaster, who does not need magic. And he got an extra turn. He's going to get his Gerald up a little bit more again. We have everything burned. Wish we could get our cleanse back up. Go use it on blue right there, if I'm not mistaken, that was. I don't think we can take any good extra turns around here. We can take brown for mana or our green as well. Want to make sure I don't accidentally give him anything if we were to do that. And this is just a huge buff right now. Wish we could get our bat back up and get a buff on it. Luckily, our Herdmaster just cleansed, so we'll be able to clear that out, get away all of those silences that we just had on us. And can one of you please just buff up the bat already? I'm going to try aiming it down our humility right now because he does have the buff that we need. Because he's doing 32 stats right now instead of the Brine, which is only doing 16. So, unfortunately, there's no greens around. I do not want him taking any more skulls than he already has. Doesn't matter too much if we do damage to him, since he's only really buffing up the Mercy and the Gerald, or Yerl. Gonna wait on it. We'll use our Brine the Lucky. Please! Oh, well, at least we got the magic on our humility. But we're getting very unlucky. Not a single magic buff on Bat. We could be casting it now, but he has such high HP at this point that it almost wouldn't be worth it. I'm just making sure the Mercy won't do anything right here that's too important. Double checking the board, and I guess we can go for the Bat finally. He's going to trigger humility, of course, every single time we do that. But we'll be able to take this Mercy away. Take that off. Check to see what the most populated is. Let's use it on blue. We don't have a Valkyrie to assist it, but we finally get the bonus on Bat. 66 damage to everything. Normally that would occur a lot quicker. But you can get unlucky sometimes. Especially with that silence we have to deal with. But at this point, it's as good as over. We'll just be able to keep casting this, and there isn't much he'll be able to do against it, since he doesn't really have anything too good on his team that boosts based on magic. So there goes the Mercy. Oh, I left the reds there, but we're just going to cleanse off that fire anyway, so not too big a deal. Let's explode them all, the yellows. 2 mana short on our humility, unfortunately. But he might give us the mana for it. Skulls over there, I'll just kind of let them be. We'll take that, get up both our Bat and our humility. Yeah, for the most part, I feel like humility, you kind of have to use it as you need to. On Valkyrie teams, you'd use it mainly on blue. On other teams, you'd probably use it on skulls to make sure the AI wastes their turn on skulls. Or on whatever color is most populated. Like right now, purple is actually pretty populated, so I wouldn't mind using it, especially now that the Mercy is dead. So we'll use that. We do miss the extra turn though, but he doesn't use purple on anything, so it doesn't even matter. If we could get 1 yellow, that'd be nice. Unfortunately, it's not around. I don't believe 65 is gonna, or 66 is gonna be enough damage. And of course, we can't get another magic buff, but as soon as he creates some yellow for us, we'll be able to get him up, and that'll pretty much be the match. Just buff this up, use it on green. It's the most populated, it seems to be, on the board right now. We'll get the extra turn. And there goes the magic buff with a 114 true damage Crimson Bat for the triple kill. And no demonic pact, so... So that is Humility. Definitely a very interesting magic buffer. I really love using it. It's actually my favorite guardian of any of the 6. Mostly because Brian the Lucky used to be my favorite troop back in the day when this game started. And now that there's a troop that is viable, that is pretty much just like him, it's very nice to have. So Humility, definitely very strong. I would advise not using Humility unless you have the legendary trait, though. It is one of the guardians that is exponentially better once it has the legendary trait than prior to having the legendary trait. Prior to the legendary trait, it's essentially just a looping Brian the Lucky, but with it, it can be a lot more viable to set it in first slot, and it'll buff your entire team a couple times, even if it's just a punching bag to the enemy team. You'll be getting plenty of magic. You'll even get more magic in many cases than that of what Sacrifice can do, which is a guardian focused specifically on magic buffing, yet Humility can actually magic buff slightly better than it. But anyways, that'll wrap it up for this video. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful day.